I cannot believe we're 15 episodes in and at the end of season one. Wow, wow, wow. Podcasting has been such a fun and fascinating personal journey. It's honestly unlocked doors of creativity that I didn't even know I had in me. And y'all, for that, I am so, so grateful. And I'm grateful for you all. Thank you for your support, for listening, for the feedback. It was scary, but you know me, I stayed doing things scared. And this version of me is very, very much grateful for the version of myself that was scared and did it anyway. For season two, we're going to go deeper into the topics you've engaged the most with. We'll be covering spirituality in the context of entrepreneurship and emotional health. And I'll be interviewing some of your faves who will be dropping gem after gem after gem. So this might be the last episode for the season, but we'll be back, Bibiti Coleando, as we say in my culture, on September 6th. So please mark your calendars. And so, today's episode is probably going to feel a little bit on the personal side because I want to talk to y'all about how who you became to survive is not who you really are. And that is a journey that I know all too well. And you know that for me, this personal development work is just so special and so important, not only because it is my purpose in this lifetime and the work that I'm here to do, but again, because I can really pair my professional background and training with some like real personal experiences to really lead folks down a path that I've at least, that I've walked down myself at least once. And, you know, you deserve to know who you are, right? You deserve to know who you were before you had to become the version of you that had to survive, right? You deserve to go down that road of self-discovery, which, I think is a journey that you'll probably be on forever and ever and ever. It's like a lifetime journey. And, I'm especially talking to my high achieving, ambitious, I'm going to make a way where there isn't one, women of color, entrepreneurs and leaders, the ones who are strong and have their shit together, et cetera, et cetera. And, before we get too deep into the episode, I do just want to pause here for a second and just clarify who I'm referring to when I talk about, being a high achiever or the term high achieving. I'm talking about the folks who are typically quick starts in the Kolbe assessment. And if you have not taken that assessment, I highly, highly suggest it. That's Kolbe with a K. So Kolb as in boy E. The folks who have a high drive, right? They love learning. They tend to prefer to work alone because ain't nobody got standards like they do. So they just prefer to do things on their own. They are driven by achievement, and they also tend to measure their worth by the results of their work. And, just to illustrate this, we all knew or know, right? Like if you're still in school, but we all knew someone, let's say in high school or college, who like never went to class, did the least amount of work possible, but showed up on the day of the test and got an A, like killed it. I hated those people. In high school, I worked so, so hard in all of my classes, but especially in chemistry class. Like I took immaculate notes. I highlighted my notes. I color coded, my notes, like the whole shebang. I came in for extra help. I did all of the things. And like, I managed maybe to get like a B or something, right? Meanwhile, my classmate, shout out to Jeffrey De La Cruz, would be asleep in class half the time. Did the least amount of work. Homeboy would just stroll in on the day of the test and kill it every single time. I hated that, right? And so me, smart, high achiever, Jeffrey, smart, and a laid back kind of guy. And, I think it's an important distinction to make because you can be smart and not necessarily present as a high achiever, right? I think that sometimes they're used interchangeably. I think that being a high achiever or like this quality of being high achieving is a way of operating and working. It's not necessarily a quality of being. Okay. And so I believe that no one is born a high achiever, like regardless of your background. I think that's something that you become. And for folks of the global majority, for people of color in particular, I think it can be something of an armor, right? It's how we can protect ourselves from whatever, we perceive to be a threat or to be dangerous. And sometimes the truth of the matter is that, we become high achieving out of survival, and I've spoken about how intelligent our brains and bodies are. They will do whatever is necessary to survive in the face of danger or chaos or uncertainty or threat. And when I think about my own story, right, when I think about how I became to be a high achiever, you know, it was definitely modeled for me. I come from an immigrant family, and that kind of automatically makes us hustlers. We were in a new country. At least my mom was, my grandma was, right, like folks who are first generation here in this country. They came to a place that they didn't know. They literally had to figure out a way in order to make it. And if there wasn't a way, they were going to make one. Like, that's just the family that I come from, And if you're tuning in, you probably, come from a similar type of way of being, right? So that type of like high achieving quality, make a way where there isn't one, is just something that is like the type of energy that I grew up around. So that was already in the bag. And then there's like the trauma that I experienced, and certain life events that I experienced, where achievements and my education and learning really became a refuge for the chaos that I was experiencing around me. And even if back then I didn't have the language, or like just didn't have the wherewithal to like know that what was happening around me was chaotic, my body definitely knew. And it did what it had to do, right? And so in that chaos, like most children who experience chaos as kids, right? That chaos really did a number on my self-worth, right? So here I was in a situation that was, or in various situations really, that felt confusing and destabilizing, and, was deteriorating my self worth. And at the same time, I had this other experience in school and academic settings where, I had my intelligence and I was getting things right, and I was getting good grades and awards and et cetera, et cetera. Like, I had this other experience where I was feeling validated and seen and celebrated, right? So it was like these two very opposing, kind of dissonant experiences that I was having at the same time as a kid. And, you know, I do want to pause here for a second and be very clear that being a high achiever, being motivated by achievement, is not a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a superpower. We have natural leadership abilities, our focus and discipline unmatched. And, we don't back down from a challenge. In fact, we see them as opportunities, right? I think that where we might get a little tripped up is when we think that that's all that we are, especially when we came to high achievement, or became a high achiever as a means to survive whatever situation we experienced in the past, right? And it's not all of who you are. It can't be, because achieving and striving for goals and setting goals is not all that there is to you, to life, to your legacy, to connection, and all of the things that make us tick and feel full as human beings. For me, it really started in middle school. And by the time I got to high school, it took a life of its own. After that, forget about it. It was like Josie was synonymous with being the smart one, the driven one. It's like that's kind of all that there was to me. My high achievement became my personal brand. in a way, which is like really nuts to think about now. And as I shared before, this experience of being recognized for the high achievement felt good. So what did I do? I just continued to go towards that, right? And before I knew it, it was all I knew. It was all I could talk about, right? It's where I felt validated, and in a lot of ways, it consumed me. And again, I was making money, climbing up the corporate ladder in management positions. Like outwardly, this thing was serving me. But what I didn't realize was that it was at the expense of knowing myself and knowing who I really was, and even being intentional and having a say in who I was becoming. It's almost like I was in a trance, right? Just like going, 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 following kind of what was right there in front of me, kind of just like low hanging fruit. It's there for the taking. I'm going to take it. It feels good. It, strokes my ego. Okay, let's go towards more. Right. I hope that you can kind of see how it can be really easy to just, live your life in this way, kind of in this trance without really realizing what's happening. And then, life be life, and the pandemic happened, and freedom was taken away, and we were cooped up, and we had no idea what was happening, and we were forced to slow down and look at things that we were too distracted to look at. For me, I was too busy achieving to look at kind of what was happening around me. And at the same time, I'd ended a long-term relationship, and healing from that was one of the deepest forms of self discovery that I've ever been on. Right. And it was on this self discovery journey that I realized that, like, this high achievement quality, right? Like this part of, what had become my brand wasn't all of who I was. And I started discovering parts of myself that I never knew. Like, never. Like, how? It's my life, it's my body, it's the life that I think I'm leading. How come I didn't know that, I was like this really loving and nurturing person, right? I forever thought that I was this like rough and tough and rigid and blunt person, blah, 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 blah. And like, yes, I was all of those things, but it was armor. It wasn't really who I was, right? I remember thinking, like, how come I just like never knew how romantic I was? How come I never knew these like softer, tender, sweet parts of myself? And, of course, how could I? The circumstances that I grew up in, right, that like I obviously had no say in, really dimmed those parts of me out of survival. And so, I share this, and why this is so important is because, you know, yes, you're a high achiever. Yes, you have big goals, and, you want to have an incredible legacy. And you can't know what you really, really, really want if you don't know who you are. And you can't know who you are if you're still showing up and living in the image and the version that you created out of survival. I know that what you are building, what you are leading is bigger than you. And that movement deserves the most authentic, real part of you. You have to do that work of really getting like beyond who you became to be to survive, right? For me now, with the work that I've done, right, with all the self-discovery that I've done and will continue to do forever and ever, with the commitment, the real commitment to myself, now my high achievement exists alongside, not in front of, not on top of, the clearest version and vision of myself. It no longer overshadows who I now know myself to be. Whereas before, it's what I led with. Now I lead with who I am, right? I lead with my authenticity. I lead with my values. And because I'm clear on who I am, I now get to mold my high achievement or my high achievement skills, if you will, and use it as a tool to accelerate my impact and my legacy building, right? Now it becomes like a compliment instead of kind of what takes center stage. And again, before I end, I want to make something extremely clear. I love, love, love being a high achiever. Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's a superpower, but only if it exists as a companion to who you really are. All right, friends. That is all for now. Thank you, thank you, thank you again for the most wonderful season one. I'll see you again for a powerful, powerful season two on September 6th. Take good care of yourselves.